see everything from 80s dresses with big shoulders to, fabulous feathery collar. There's a beautiful feather collar that was worn on a 1920s dress with a beaded tassel that comes down. I've got my Gucci shoes that are like, I can't remember what year they came from, maybe 1998, with like leopard skin on them. So it's all about just combining it with anything and mixing different decades. I mean, it's fun. And you're doing something really different. Hello, my name is Charlotte Smith. Welcome to Tea and Biscuits.
Charlotte, I know that you have a fantastic collection of really incredible clothing. How did that begin in your life? How did you begin loving clothing?
Well, this is such a long story, 21 years now, but 21 years ago, my American Quaker godmother bequeathed me a collection of clothing. And it ended up being about 70 boxes, 1,200 kilos of clothing arrived from America. And, at the time I had a young daughter. I loved antiques. I obviously loved dressing well, but I never envisaged taking care of treasures that belonged to other people that had been gifted to my godmother, who then gifted them to me. So that's really how it started. And for me, it wasn't so much about the clothing. It was about the history, about the designer, about the century, about the decade, about how the clothing these women wore changed them in society's eye, or how the clothing they wore changed them as a person, maybe took them into a different career. I also was fascinated about manufacturing. So I was looking at around the story of fashion history and how it affected us, men and women, more than actually putting on the clothing on and parading around in it.
Imagine I'm a person, I've never worn vintage. I've never really investigated. Designers are too scary for me, but I would like to have something special. What do I begin? How do I begin that journey to great fashion in vintage?
Well, good question. I think for people who have never worn vintage before, I think some people can be put off by feeling they have to dress in a decade, like head to toe, and look like they've walked out of a picture book or a museum. So I always advise, and this is how I dress, because I never dress as if, I'm trying to recreate an era. I like combining things. So, I'll wear like something like this. I'm wearing my 70s dress, but I've got a pair of glammy beaded shoes from India I bought last year, modern, and my modern jewelry and things. So I really try to combine things. So if, for instance, someone has never worn vintage before, probably the easiest thing to do is to buy a handbag, because a handbag is such an easy way of accessorizing your outfit, making a statement. Someone will ask you about it. No one else is going to have it. Doesn't cost the earth. And then, you're starting your foray into the whole vintage story. If you are self-conscious and shy, whether it's going out doing something, meeting people you've never met, or just in general, wearing something fabulous, whether it's designer, whether it's vintage, whether it's high street, whatever, it's almost like like your armor when you go out. And you can even hide behind the facade of what you're wearing, and and be a different person. I mean, I would never wear some of these clothes. I mean, now I think, wow, how did I have the nerve to wear that? So, and I'm used to wearing it all the time. I think, wow, God, I walked into that event wearing that outfit. But people still talk about it. So, sometimes it does take nerves to wear things. But, I think it is a wonderful way of just, kind of easing yourself into any situation by wearing something fabulous.
are so lucky because you're going to be part of the Dirty Jane's family. Tell me, what will that look like?
Well, I mean, for me, it's great. And I'm very excited to be at Dirty Jane's because I did an event quite a few years ago when one of my books came out. I think it must have been my third book, One Enchanted Evening. And I had all my dresses on display and we were raising money for charity at the time. So I'm very familiar with the setup and also with your wonderful customers who come through who are very appreciative of, vintage things as well as new, beautiful things. I'm bringing out, I think there are like 55 evening dresses, ball gowns. There'll be wedding dresses there. The earliest one is from 1920 and goes up to 1970. These are just the things that I've got in mind that I'm going to put out there. I've got bodices from the Victorian era, but just a few. But mostly it's designer clothing. It's like the Valentinos, the Diors. I've got, Chanel pieces coming in. I've got, smaller designers, but still very influential in the world of fashion. And they're still influential in how designers create things today. But there'll be everything, day dresses. I mean, my collection's mostly fancy rather than, just like workwear or day wear. But I do have lovely day dresses. I've got, suits. I've got skirt suit, trouser suits. I've got pantsuits from the 70s that are lace. So anything you can think of, and maybe a lot of people have been to my talks and my exhibitions and catwalk events, you'll see a lot of that for sale.
How did you go from being baby Charlotte into kind of turning into this fashion aficionado?
Oh, well, I mean, it's been an exciting and continues to be a very exciting life, very international, and I think that's why the collection found its perfect custodian, because it's very international. Because I was born in Hong Kong. My father was working over there at the time. My mother was English, my dad was American, and so we've sort of moved all over all our lives. So I've grown, I've lived in America, I've lived in Ireland, I've lived in France, England, where else have I lived? Monaco, now Australia. So again, my story is all over everywhere, and I just go wherever I go, I make a home. And luckily my collection has made sure that I'm always well dressed in every home I make.
No matter where you are.
No matter where I am.
Always an outfit.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And of course, coming out here to Australia almost, 27 years ago, everyone thought I was coming out to, nowhere. And everyone kept filling me with stories saying that there would be red dust blowing down the main street of Blackheath, of course, in the Blue Mountains where I first came. And the collection arriving at that stage then kind of put my feet on the ground because it was so big I couldn't move it around. And also it gave me a connection with all these different countries I'd lived in, loved, and kind of got to know the way of life there. So the clothing really gave me, I really felt that it was making me feel grounded for the first time in a long time. I'm Charlotte. Thank you very much. You've been watching Tea and Biscuits. I hope you've enjoyed both the talk and your tea and biscuit.